imre fi והגיון ליבי לפניך אדוני צורי וגואלי לפניך. Birth is a beginning and death a destination. But life is a journey, a going and growing from stage to stage, from childhood to maturity, and from youth to knowledge, from innocence to awareness, from foolishness to discretion, and then perhaps to wisdom, from weakness to strength, strength to weakness, and often back again, from offense to forgiveness, from loneliness to love, from joy to gratitude, pain to compassion, and from grief to understanding, from fear to faith, from defeat to defeat to defeat, until looking backward or ahead we see that victory lies not at some high place along the way, but in having made a journey. Birth is a beginning, and death a destination, but life is a journey, a sacred pilgrimage from birth to death, to life everlasting. Amen. El Harachamanu, sweet God, you have taken from us a beloved one. We gather now and we raise our voices in prayer. We remember Ray with incredible admiration for the qualities of his life. He is deeply missed in the shadow of his loss. We gain kinship with the words of our teachings of our tradition. And I invite you to join with me, if you wish, in the recitation of the 23rd Psalm. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Amen.
When I die, give what's left of me away to my children and to old men that wait to die. And if you need to cry, cry for your brother walking in the street beside you. And when you need me, put your arms around anyone and give what you need to give me to them. I want to leave you something better than words or sounds. Look for me in people I've known or loved. And if you cannot give me away, at least let me live in your eyes and not in your mind. You can love me best by letting hands touch other hands, by letting go of children that need to be free. Love doesn't die, people do. So when that's all that's left of me is love, give me away.
Dear friends, I've been asked to convey to you a tremendous gratitude, Raymond Cohn's family, for your being here present with them today, to remember this generous and kind, brave human being. At the conclusion of our service here today, we will continue with a service of interment at Mayfield Cemetery, after which we will continue with memorial prayers and Shiva at Ilana and Norm's home, 5178 Crofton Avenue in Solon, off of Miles Road. The family will continue today from 4 p.m. until 8 p.m., tomorrow afternoon from 2 to 5 p.m., and on Sunday they will move their Shiva to Raymond and Lois's home on Chagrin Boulevard, 23511, Suite 420. They invite you, if you wish, over the coming days, weeks, to offer your memories, your thoughts, and your gestures of love and condolence, to be sure. And if you wish to honor his life, to do so with a gift of tzedakah. Perhaps, if you wish, to Anshe Chesed Fairmount Temple. Dear friends, there is an old parable. It tells of a father who traveled with his child for many miles. Each time they reached an obstacle, such as a river or a mountain, the father would lift the child on his shoulders, and when needed, carry the child through a difficult terrain. Finally, when they came to their destination, a walled castle, the gate of the castle was shut and there were only narrow windows on the sides of the wall. So then the father said to the child, "I need something from you now. Up until this moment, I have carried you. Now the only way we can reach our destination is for you to climb through the windows and open the gates for us both from within." So it is with our lives. Parents take care of their children, feed and clothe them, and see them through all sorts of obstacles, yet the generations before us, even with so many strengths, often find the next gate closed to them. It happened to no less than Moses in our Torah. Moses himself was given the privilege of seeing far into the land his children, grandchildren, generations would inhabit. But he is told, "You may not cross over into the border." I share this difficult truth with you today intentionally. I share it because, as we recognize in Ray Cohn's entire life journey, his generosity of spirit, his life force and being, this is a man that, until he could no longer stand and walk, stood with stature and walked with tremendous purpose on this earth. I share it because we gather today with his loving family, whom he carried with dignity and passion, good humor, and menschlichkeit all the days of his life, until it seemed, over the last few days, he reached insurmountable gates of a castle, where a younger Ray Cohn, an honored veteran with a distinguished record and incomparable memories, having been part of that brave force that liberated Dachau, might have been able to scale that castle and climb through the windows. But today it is his life, his voice, that tells us it is us that must move forward to do what only those among the living can do. I feel honored to be one of his rabbis, to be one who helps lift up his highest ideals today on behalf of his grateful family, expressing some of their most poignant memories with gratitude. Because whenever the last today of Ray's physical existence among us would come, Lois, his beloved one, thought it might be an occasion to remember the fullness of his life, the joy and laughter of their marriage nearly 7 decades long, a glorious heritage in which their children and grandchildren continue to bask. In this gentle space, on behalf of our whole community, I say first and foremost to you, Lois, that our hearts hurt alongside yours as you mourn for your very best friend on earth. He was to you what the biblical book of Songs imagines that we are to God. It says, "Matzati et she'ahava nafshi." I have found the one whom my soul adores. Your relationship was of mutual adoration. Your relationship was deep and loving, born of great memories of how he came into your life. On the very same day in 1942, when you and your family left Florida to return home to Cleveland, Ray left France to return home from the war. It was the first day of April, and he was your April Fool. Because initially, when Gloria tried to give him your phone number, he foolishly tossed it aside, not realizing he would have to make up a story to her that he lost it, when he realized he really did want to take you out. An older man, he had lived and survived thus far by what he called incredible luck through numerous bombing raids in London, other hardships of military service. But boy, he found his best luck when the two of you started going steady. And you felt pretty blessed as well. Not only did you have a man in your life who made you laugh and reminded you of such fun and interesting things in this world, you also had a man with a car. And he would drive you back and forth down to Case when you were finishing your degree, stop at Mauby's with you on the way back for a burger, and for the opportunity to be on your arm and he on yours. The day after you finished your degree, you married him, and you never looked back, knowing that looking forward, your soul had at its side a protective, gentle, and funny mate, and that you cherished the ability to always be able to talk through things. You would keep one another warm each night with your nearness, but also with the talks that you had that could last clear till 2:30 in the morning. Today we grieve with those to whom he was such an adoring and venerable patriarch. Our sympathies extend to Randy, who will speak in a few moments about her dad, to Alana and her Norman, to Susan and her Paul. You each carry such precious feelings for your father and father figure. He and Lois have always loved and treated your husbands like sons. His death, though it came gently and fortuitously, just 2 days ago, after Cantor Sager sang to him a final blessing of peace, nevertheless leaves a very large space in your lives where so many incredible memories are stored and where we pray his life's song can continue to be sung. Lana remembers so vividly holding her father's hand on the way to ice skating rinks or into temple, and wherever they went feeling so precious in her father's care. You remember his positive and success-oriented advice, his way of conveying in words and without them how to look at the world with hope. Randy adored her dad's inquisitive and outgoing nature, his knowledge that he was modeling for her how to be sure each day included play and laughter, not just work and determination. I am told he never spoke of work when he would come home, fairly countercultural for the time in which he was raising children. But that was the time that he wanted to be with his girls. Something he had gotten used to throughout his life, with strong and abiding relationships with mother, sisters, daughters, granddaughters. He knew how to make his girls feel special. Randy, you remember dancing on his feet as a little girl, and knowing that in one way or another he was carrying you with his energy, inspiring you to follow, even though you didn't imagine you would, into a similar field and style of working in this world. And then even in recent years, when you and Kira came to live near your parents, she tells me that whether it was to the melodies of a dancing toy flower in her grandparents' kitchen, or her grandfather's own sense of beat and rhythm made up all on his own, they too enjoyed dancing, kvelling, playing with one another, until his body just couldn't cooperate any longer. Susie prizes the feeling she had her dad's whole life because he got such a big kick out of her, calling her sir. In every playful game, they would exchange correspondence and messages that way. He posted her childhood pictures and paintings in each new office he would occupy, even as she grew adolescent and matured into an adult. Creating together a game with a broken off hand from a mannequin that has found to many in your family's delight. You will find that mannequin hand inside suitcases and drawers, mailboxes, and from what I can gather, this game is still going on. So for those of you heading over to Shiva today, don't be surprised if there's an extra hand by the cream cheese. Seriously, watch for it. Having the blessing to know Raymond Cohn since my arrival at Fairmount Temple 6 years ago, I knew already what the family meant when they said that he felt he was lost. He was delighted to look back on a long life, and he did look forward, though he did not reach it in fullness to reaching the century mark. Let's round him up. But what I didn't realize then is just how many times he could count as blessings of luck that could have made it impossible for me to ever have met him. Born August 16th of 1917, Ray was one of 3 siblings in a very large extended family who had all immigrated to Cleveland and had strong and caring relationships with his sisters, Judith and Ruby. May they both rest in peace. Apparently, the family's original last name in Europe was Kagan, and it was changed, as we've all heard happened at Ellis Island, by one of the border staff trying to make out the thick Yiddish accent, saying Kagan made him Cohen. When Raymond Cohen was born, that was his last name, but he changed it one more time when he found that as an ad executive, no one wanted to even meet this talented young professional, as they couldn't get past his proud Jewish heritage. When he was born, the President of the United States was Woodrow Wilson, our 28th. And look at us, 98 years later, watching very disturbing election primaries for the 45th President of our nation. After graduating in 1933 from Glenville High School, he started working for $7 a week at a music store at 112th and Vincent. Then his uncle, Max Corman, called Ray and, seeing his potential, called to his attention an ad that he had seen for a new college program that would guarantee him a spot at Cleveland College, ultimately Case. Finally, with the tremendous luck he seemed to have in his life, Ray was able to maneuver himself over to OU. And in order to make ends meet, he got 2 lucky jobs. One was waiting tables, mopping floors, doing what needed to be done at his fraternity house, which more or less got him room and board. Then he wound up with an internship at a local department store, which he felt was great enough just to have the opportunity, but impressed with Ray as everyone was, given his ebullience, his style, his strong capabilities. They insisted it be a paying internship for fear they might lose him, and he earned a pretty good check, could afford to fill up the car at his fraternity with gas. Here, too, Raymond Cohen spied an opportunity and hatched a plan. In the middle part of the last century, Raymond Cohen was the first ever Uber driver. He'd earned money by driving people around OU and back forth to their homes here in Cleveland for school breaks and the like. He did okay that way. A distinguished serviceman, with the role of captain in the Army Air Force, Raymond survived many tumultuous experiences, including those air raids I mentioned, destroying buildings that he had just been in. During the course of his service, he was remarkably one of the brave men of that great generation, upon whose backs the freedom we have in this country was built. His eyes were always looking forward, though, because Ray strived, I believe, to let go of the images he once saw in Dachau, when he was among the liberators of that concentration camp. But thank God for his service to our nation and our way of life. He had a most unique experience on the day after the war ended in 1945 as the head of an intelligence and reconnaissance team for the 9th Air Corps Disarmament Division. He remembered riding in a jeep with a sergeant and an interpreter when they saw German planes and flyers at a field near Munich. He later told a newspaper interviewer that a German general told me that the Luftwaffe High Command wished to surrender to him and to the American forces under his command rather than the Russians. Among the people he took charge of in his capture were 2 generals, 60 colonels, 150 enlisted men, and 8 women auxiliaries. When the headquarters radioed Ray to tell him he must wait for an interrogation team to arrive 8 days later, he introduced himself to the German soldiers held captive. Captain Cohen is in charge now, he told the Germans, making them docile and reversing their impression of what it looks like when a Jewish man survives a great world war. That he carried such distinguishing elements in his biography did not mean that he wore his dog tags on his sleeve. Far from it. Throughout his adult life and the agencies and stores where he worked, later at the ad agencies he was an entrepreneur of himself, he dressed in his own inimitable style. Stylish suits, hats, and ties of the madman age. Took care of such clients as Stop and Shop supermarkets, McKesson and Robbins aluminum siding, IDL drugstores, an association of 70 independent pharmacies. His family members are each wearing one of the pieces of his clothing on their bodies this day in remembrance of this special madman. Still, this was information that when in years you would have had to research to find out. Raymond Cohn didn't care for the spotlight to be so much on him. He wanted to know about you. It made sense to me as his rabbi that his death comes in our year, when the Jewish people at this time are studying a Torah portion that begins with the command for the Israelites to bring pure olive oil for a continually lit lamp, what we call in Hebrew a ner tamid, an eternal light. That would always be and continues to be part of our prayer environment in the sanctuaries where we pray. The rabbis teach us that the word ner, consisting of the two Hebrew letters nun and resh, is actually an acrostic, standing for nun, nefesh, a soul, with resh, ruach, spirit. Could there be a more apt description for the man we have come here to pay homage? Raymond Cohn was surely a soul inspirited and ensouled for a sense of purpose. He was very clear about whom he admired most in the world, namely his grandchildren. You should only know that however much he told you directly of his pride, he told the others around him as well. He's probably quelling at this very moment with his friends that predeceased him, regaling him with tales of how your grandma and he have been part of your lives so very long. Sarah, you and your Scott, Adam and his Jody, Alexa, Jordan, and Kira, you and his great-grandchildren, Jaden, Cameron, and most recently, in recent weeks, Mason Gray. You lit up his eyes each time he spoke of you. He wanted you to be happy. He wanted you to know how grateful he was to you. Jordan, you told me how grateful that you are about having such an amazing grandfather, so easy to talk to and relate to, even over a simple meal at Bob Evans or Joe's. Adam, you spoke to me of the incredible patience that your grandfather had in your, shall we call them, noisy family. How resilient he was through adverse circumstances. Alexa, you remember your grandfather being so accepting of many of the challenges and idiosyncrasies of others, and only getting stubborn about being able to do things for himself on his own terms. As Paul said to me, his father-in-law was not about to use a walker. That was for old people. Even as he entered the latter half of his 10th decade, he wasn't about to accept that he was one of the old people. Sarah, when I was listening to you yesterday read from your grandfather's own handwritten notes about his legacy, one could tell you were not just trying to decode his interesting penmanship. You were remembering him telling those stories that he had written down in his own voice, his own tones. And Sarah will speak in a few moments as well on behalf of all the grandchildren. Wow. Dear friends, a true nefesh with ruach, an inspirited soul, has walked among us. And so today as we look around us, let us see the light that shines still, continually like a ner tamid, an eternal light in a sanctuary, reminding us of those who came before us and those who will come after us. I beg of you today as we look with fondness on the images that characterized this long and distinguished life, to remember that all that we lay to rest on this day is his physical presence, his light. His soul continues to shine brightly. It is ours to know the courage and strength he carried, his soul adoring, his glowing love for his bride and their marriage, and the way in which he stood distinguished in clothing with such style that every member of his family is wearing. These are ours. May we all live so well, and die with as much gratitude and hope, certain that our descendants have just what it takes to scale the castle, climb through the window, and open the door for us. So may it be. Amen. I wanted to call on Randy to share some memories of her dad.
Hello, everyone. My wonderful dad loved words. As the owner of his own advertising agency for 30 years, he used his extremely creative mind to put words together so they would sell products, to the point that they couldn't get out of your head. I'm sure most of us here today are old enough to remember the famous jingle he wrote to promote an aluminum siding company. My family wants me to sing it, so I'll do it as well as I can. Garfield 1, 2, 3, 2, 3. We all still remember the words, but long ago forgot the product he was selling. That was my dad, a brilliant wordsmith and great at what he did for a living. Even in his long retirement, which lasted over 20 years, my dad almost every day did word puzzles to keep his mind sharp, transitioning from the plain dealer crossword puzzles to the word scrambles he did in the hospital just a week or so ago. And it worked. At 98, he was just as fun as ever to be around, telling jokes, asking you a question about something specific in your life, and each night talking with Lois about politics and world events that they had read that day in the New York Times. And when the standard words didn't apply, he used his trademark humor to come up with his own words that have become part of the family lexicon, passed from one generation to the other. Words like framus, which was a catch-all for any object around the house, unbelievable, which meant really good, and howabunget, which I think is self-explanatory. And when it came to his daughters, he always had the right words for every occasion. His kindness, wisdom, and love for us permeated his life and ours. We were each made to feel special, that there was nothing we couldn't do. He would have a supportive remark for the most mundane of our accomplishments, like how much he loved how the table was set, and would ask us almost every time we talked about how work was going, cavelling at our successes. And it didn't matter whether it was his wife or kids or the waitress at the diner. It was crucial for him to say the words that would make you laugh and lift your spirits. And for Lois, he only had words of love. For the woman he cherished, his soulmate. There was never a moment in our lives that we didn't understand, through their actions and words, the depths of my parents' love for each other. And he loved to use his words in great stories he regaled us with, which we heard over and over again, but each time was just as good as the last. It was sort of a best of the life of Ray, from his World War II stories, to his college years stories, to his meeting Lois stories. Every daughter and grandchild can recite them almost verbatim, and all had the same theme, that he was the luckiest guy in the world to which good things always happened. So we thought it was fitting here today to capture what my dad was in a list of words. For he had such a long, interesting, and wonderful life. If I used prose to tell the story, we would be here for hours. And these descriptive words will explain why having Ray in our lives made all of us the very lucky ones. Funny and clever, optimist, kind, generous, chivalrous, perfectionist, war hero, cheese hater, great dancer, life of the party, Lois's lover boy, adoring husband to Lois, his lover girl, style icon, always winning at poker, at least that's what he told us, avid golfer and tennis player, TV sports addict, oil painter at the age of 80, loving brother, son, cousin, and uncle, devoted father, grandfather, and great-grandfather, forever loved and missed.
For those of you that don't know me, I'm Sarah, the oldest of Ray's 5 grandchildren. While I'm sad that my grandpa isn't here with us today, I can't help but feel a sense of peace and happiness thinking about him and the full life he lived for 98 years. I feel incredibly blessed that I was able to have my grandpa here for 35 years of my life, to support me and be part of so many significant moments, from ice skating competition when I was a young kid, to high school and college graduations, to walking down the aisle in my wedding, and to the birth of my 3 children, his great-grandchildren. I am grateful that 2 of my 3 children had the chance to get to know and love the special guy that was Grandpa Ray. He frequently told me that I was his favorite oldest granddaughter, a compliment I took to heart. He had similar compliments for each of his other grandkids. Alexa was his favorite second oldest granddaughter, Adam was his favorite oldest grandson, Jordan his favorite youngest grandson, and Kira his favorite youngest granddaughter. He made sure everyone felt special, and he made sure he was there for the important moments in every one of our lives. It was important to him to be there. He attended every dance recital, birthday party, play, even if it required a flight to New York City to see Kira's special moment. And he'd show up with Grandma Lois, the 2 of them, in perfectly coordinated outfits, 20 minutes early to get a seat in the front row. He was so very proud of his kids, grandkids, and great-grandkids, and he marveled in all of our accomplishments, no matter how big or how small. He wanted to know and understand all the details about what was going on in our lives and the things that we were interested in, whether it was a new job we landed or a new app on our iPhone. I know that one of Jordan's favorite traditions with Grandpa and Grandma were their lunches at Bob Evans, where Grandpa would share countless stories about the war, his advertising career, his childhood. He was genuinely happy to hear from Jordan about the daily goings-on in his life, his take on politics, and how work or school were going. Grandpa Ray was so appreciative of these interactions he was able to have with every one of us, and in turn, it made the time we spent with him feel so much more special and memorable. When I reflect back on Grandpa Ray's legacy, the thing I will remember most is his sense of humor. He was always making everyone around him laugh. His humor is something that is intertwined into nearly every memory I have of our family get-togethers with him as our patriarch. From weekly Sunday night dinners to Passover seders to family vacations, laughter and a dose of silliness was always part of the occasion. It's something Grandpa Ray instilled in all of us. As Alexa put it a few nights ago, so many of our best traits can be attributed to him. We all have the same sense of humor. We all think we're hilariously witty and clever, even when we're not. We're determined, hardworking, and focused, and we are all very creative in our own individual ways. 3 of us grandchildren and 1 of his daughters have followed in his footsteps, choosing a profession in advertising-related jobs. Adam, who went into a job in digital advertising, has always felt a strong sense of pride in his career choice, knowing that it was a path also chosen by his grandfather. To say that Grandpa Ray left his mark on our family is an understatement. Because of the special man Grandpa Ray was, when my husband Scott and I were naming our oldest son Jaden 5 years ago, I naturally thought of my grandpa. I loved the thought of naming my son after him, but he wasn't comfortable with the idea, because Jewish tradition is to name a baby after a deceased relative. I respected his wishes and named my son after someone else. 4 weeks ago today, almost to the exact minute, my 3rd son was born. A few days before he was to be born, I was chatting with my grandpa, and he asked what we had planned to name the new baby. At the time, we hadn't selected a name. I once again brought up using Ray, and he again said no. However, he suggested we consider naming the baby after Grandma Lois's father, Maurice, who I never had the opportunity to meet, but who I'm told was a wonderful man. It was because of that conversation that we decided to name the baby Mason after Maurice. Mason's middle name was chosen in the hospital after he was born. I had heard the name Gray months earlier, and it stuck with me. I couldn't articulate at the time what I liked about it, but I felt like it had a nice ring to it. So Mason Gray it was. This past Tuesday night, in the hours after our grandpa had passed away, my cousin Alexa asked me if Mason's middle name was selected after Ray. It took me a minute to comprehend what she was asking, but once it did, it sent chills down my spine. Gray, the middle name I had selected weeks earlier when my grandpa was still healthy and doing well, was his name after all. G for Grandpa, followed by R-A-Y, his name. I hadn't known it at the time, but I was able to name my son after him. It was fate. As Randy was able to tell you, my grandpa was a words guy. While this has been a private family joke up until now, Grandpa Ray would say these wise words to all of us at important milestones in our lives, and it's what I'll leave you all with today. May all of your future endeavors take place in the years to come.
I invite you all to please rise. אל מלא רחמים שוכן במרומים חמצי מנוחה נכונה תחת כנפי השכינה אם קדושים וטהורים כזוהר הרקיע מזכירים את נשמת ריימונד בן אדם שהלך לעולמו בעל הרחמים יסתירהו בסתר כנפיו לעולמים ויצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתו אדוני הוא נחלתו וינוח בשלום על משכבו ונאמר Amen. God, full of compassion, eternal spirit in this universe, grant perfect rest now in your sheltering presence to our beloved one, Raymond Cohn. He has entered eternity. God of mercy, let him find refuge now in the shadow of your wings. Let his soul be bound up in the bond of eternal life. God, he tells great jokes. You listen up now. You are his inheritance, and he yours. May he rest in peace, as we say. Amen.